Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, my name is Courtney and today I have compiled some of my favorite Christmas DIYs. And the best part is when you are done watching my video, you can check the description box down below because I have linked my sweet friend Whitney from Whiskey and Whit. She has compiled a video with her favorite Christmas DIYs. So by the time you're done watching both of these, you will have tons of inspiration for Christmas. I'm also excited to tell you that I'm partnering with Chapbooks today and I want to show you how I'm using their monthly service to document my DIYs. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a little bit, but for now, let's dive into these DIYs. For this DIY, I wanted to make a cute little elf candy dish. This sign came from Dollar Tree, and I decided I was just going to give it a little bit of a facelift. So I pulled off the label and then went ahead and started painting the back side of the sign. I used some green for the hat as well as painted the base. Then where his skin tone was, I went ahead and painted that as well as went ahead and painted some hands and then did some enhancements to the, I guess his stocking or his hat by adding a bell and a little bit of trim to the hat. Once the elf sign was almost finished, I went ahead and grabbed one of these wooden boxes from Dollar Tree. It's the one that has the little wooden lid. I'm setting that lid aside. You'll see it in a DIY pretty soon. And I just took my green paint pen and just painted the very top of the box. Then taking some Christmassy fabric that I had in my stash, I went ahead and covered the box just using some hot glue. And then I went back to the elf and I attached a decal that I made as well as grabbed one of the little Dollar Tree chalkboards and went ahead and wrote on there 25 cents and then got that hot glued to my little elf. From there, I wanted to add something to the top of the box, so I thought about taking some white pom-poms, so I glued those around the edge, but I wasn't really loving the vibe, so then I ripped it off and it left a little bit of fluff, and you know what? I just went with it. At that point, you just needed to fill in with some Hershey Kisses, and you've got yourself a cute little elf candy dish. All right, I wanted to take a quick minute to tell you about how I am using Chapbooks monthly service to preserve some of the photos on my phone. So Chapbooks is a fast and affordable way to get the photos off of your phone and into albums. Their monthly service is something that you can do each month, and it's a subscription service where you can pick either a hardcover or a soft cover. They have several different color options. You can add text to it, and you can add up to 30 photos per month. So for one of these albums for the month of June, I just documented my trip to Hawaii that I took with my mom and my brother. But for July, I put all of the DIYs that I made, and I think it's a great way for me to kind of have a scrapbook of all of my projects. It's super easy to do. You just download that Chapbook app. You can select hardcover, softcover. You go in, pick the month that you want to add the photos for, and then go through your phone, add those photos. Super easy. I have a discount code down in the description box. It's October 25 for 25% off. Now let's get back to the DIYs. We're going to be using that lid from the box that I just showed you in the previous. So you're going to start with one of the Dollar Tree Christmas trees, and I just filled in the hole. Then taking some brown wax, I just went ahead and painted my entire tree as well as that lid. Now it does have a little gingerbread house looking thing cut out of it, but that's okay. You're not going to see it. Once everything is stained and dry, you're going to hot glue your lid to the base of the Christmas tree. And then your last step here is just to grab yourself a candle. I just picked up a Dollar Tree candle that smelled really nice, ripped off the label, added a little bit of baker's twine and some greenery that I got at Hobby Lobby, and that's it. You've got a really nice little piece that you can light up in the evening and enjoy the candlelight. For this next DIY, I grabbed this picture from Dollar Tree. The first thing I did was break it down and then go ahead and paint that frame with some of the Crimson Red paint by Waverly. While the frame was drying, I grabbed this little ornament from Hobby Lobby and I performed surgery. I cut off his leg, ouch, and then I went ahead and started working on putting my frame back together. I found this cute striped scrapbook paper at Hobby Lobby as well, and I used some Gorilla Glue adhesive spray to attach the paper to the back of my picture. Once that was done, I went ahead and hot glued that back into the frame and then hot glued my gingerbread man down. I created a quick little decal on Cricut Design Space, just typed out the words "Oh snap," but you certainly could use stickers here or even handwrite it if you'd like, and that's it. You've got yourself a cute little gingerbread sign. I picked up this really cute little rocking chair at an antique store, and I just wanted to do a very simple makeover. I like the way that the seat looked with the waved, but of course I didn't want to keep this fabric because who knows what's going on with that fabric. So I found some Christmas fabric. I had these little strips from a jelly roll from Walmart, and I just took my pinking shears and I cut these strips a little bit thinner. And then I first started by just wrapping kind of the base of the seat just to cover that up. And then I went ahead and just attached strips going one direction all the way across. And then for the other direction, I just weaved it in and out and just using hot glue to secure it on there and just made a new fresh little seat, and that's it. I just wanted to keep it super simple, but I did want to turn this into a little Christmas rocking chair. Rolling into this next DIY, I've got a sign that I picked up on clearance from Hobby Lobby. The first thing I did was tape off the frame, and I painted the inside of the sign with some black paint. I do go in with a little bit of white paint and brush that all along the frame. From there, I took my little gingerbread man. This came from Dollar Tree, and I filled in the little hole, and then I went ahead and painted him with some brown wax. My next step was to take this red and white checked ribbon and go ahead and glue this on these 4 little pieces. I guess that's what's supposed to be the white part of the gingerbread, and I just attached it with a little bit of hot glue. This ribbon came from Hobby Lobby, and then the buttons as well as the bow tie were painted red with the Crimson Red Waverly chalk paint. To finish off my gingerbread man, I took some white paint and I just dry brushed that all over the little guy. And then taking my white paint pen, I went in and did a squiggle all around the edges. Now, I didn't put a face on my gingerbread man, but you certainly could go back in and add a face if you would like to. I just left him faceless. I don't know, maybe it makes him a little creepy, but I kind of like it. And then from there, it was just a matter of hot gluing him on to my sign, and that's it. This little sign is all finished. To go along with my little gingerbread sign, I grabbed one of these mini wooden pins. These are the rolling pins, not pins. These are the 7-inch ones that I purchased on Amazon, and I went ahead and painted the handles white, and I painted the middle section with some brown paint. This is just the truffle paint, and from there I went ahead and took my paint marker and also added some little squiggles on the brown portion of the rolling pin. Then it was just a matter of taking a bow, or not a bow, but a ribbon, and making it into a bow, and I put that on there. And then I grabbed some little charms. These just came from the miniature section at Hobby Lobby. They have all kinds of cute little candy miniatures. I attach those to my little rolling pin, and voila, you've got yourself a little complimentary piece to your gingerbread sign. Now, who doesn't love a good Christmas directional sign? If you don't like them, well, maybe you'll love this one. So for this DIY, I grabbed some of these wooden arrows from Dollar Tree, and I went ahead and ripped off the twine and gave them a coat of white paint. Then I went on Cricut and I just cut some decals using some fun green plaid vinyl, and I just made up names, no rhyme or reason. This is kind of more of a winter type directional sign, but you could go the whole fun Christmas one and do red and green and candy themed and all that other stuff. So lots of options when it comes to directional signs for Christmas. And I went ahead and applied my decals. Now if you don't have that, Dollar Tree, grab those stickers, use stencils, use stamps, like lots of options even if you don't have a Cricut. And then taking some Epsom salt and some hot glue, I went ahead and glued some of the salt on there to kind of give it that whole snowy vibe. To get my sign put together, I grabbed 2 of the large paint sticks from Home Depot, and I went ahead and brushed some brown wax all over the sticks. And then I went ahead and attached my arrows to these 2 paint sticks. I secured these 2 pieces together with a popsicle stick, and then I just went in with a little bit of greenery and some berries just to enhance the sign a little bit. And then that is it. This little winter directional sign is ready to go. A lighted garland is the name of the game for this DIY. So for this, you want to grab yourself a strand of lights. It could be a green strand, a white strand, whatever you prefer. And then again, it could be multicolored or it could just be white lights. I'm going to be working with 3 different types of fabric. Now that's customizable as well. It's up to you. So I have got this red checked fabric that came from Hobby Lobby, and I just gave it a little character by using my pinking shears on the edges of the fabric. I've got some Dollar Tree lace as well as some pieces of burlap. Now the burlap and the fabric were cut to 1 inch wide and about 6 inches long, and then the Dollar Tree lace is just 6 inches long. And for this, this is one of those projects, plop down in front of a movie, chill out, relax, and just start tying. So I end up tying 6 pieces between each light. So I do it in a pattern: red, then the lace, then the burlap, red, then the lace, then the burlap, and I just keep tying it on there, and that's it. It's done. It just looks so cute. It gives kind of a country vibe, if you ask me, with the fabric choices that I made. But again, you can make this totally customizable to whatever look you're going for. This next DIY is a Dollar Tree DIY. So I started with this red mug from Dollar Tree, and I just made a quick little sticker on my Cricut that said gingerbread and put it on the mug. From there, I took a piece of styrofoam and set my cup down on top, and I just trimmed around the edge of the mug. I wanted to make sure that the styrofoam would fit super snugly, I don't know, that it fits really well at the top of my mug. Now, if you ever wanted to make a faux snow cone for like summertime, this is how you do it right here. You just sit there and shave, and you could put it in a fun cup. So if you want to do that, and then you just water down paint to make the syrup. But anyway, I digress. So once I got my foam inside there, I just took some of the Dollar Tree caulk and I went ahead and made my whipped topping on top of the styrofoam. Now, with these little miniatures, they all came from Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby's miniature section in Christmas is such a great little place. And so I just added all these little things, just kind of, made it look all festive and happy. And then that was it. This was finished. I let it dry really, really good. This is a very fun craft if you have, kids and want to do something, or even just a quick little easy craft night with friends. This is definitely an inexpensive project to do, and it's super fun. Those wire hangers from the dry cleaner are finally getting a makeover. So for this project, you're going to need 3 wire hangers. Starting with 2 of them, you're going to overlap them at the top, making a point. I'm just going to use some twine to go ahead and make sure that these pieces get secure together. Once those 2 are tied off, I'm going to take my 3rd hanger and flip it and lay it across and go ahead and snip off the little hook portion of the hanger with my 10 snips. Then I'm going to secure that with some twine, and then all the places where hangers overlap or touch each other, I'm going to go in with some twine and secure that down. Then taking some jute rope, I got this from Amazon. It's definitely a little bit thicker than twine. I'm just going to start wrapping this star until I get it covered and I like the way it looks. The last steps to complete my star, I went ahead and grabbed some greenery as well as these little frosted berries. These all came from Hobby Lobby. And then I also had this little Merry wooden sign that came from Dollar Tree. I'm going to go ahead and paint that red and then arrange all of this and just use some hot glue to tack it down onto my star. And from there, this little star is good to go. This next DIY is a super easy one. So for this one, you're going to need to grab 3 of these wooden plaques from Dollar Tree, and I'm just taking some brown wax and I'm covering them both front, sides, and back. Once that's done and it's all dry, I tied a little bit of twine up at the top, just kind of crisscrossed it, secured it in the back with some hot glue, and then taking my paint pen, I went and just free-handed drawing 3 trees on each, well, not 3 trees on each of the signs, but 1 tree for each of these, having them look a little bit different, and that's it. This DIY finished. These turned out to be one of my favorite ornaments I made last year. So for this one, you're going to need 7 total beads. You'll need 1 large bead and then 2 of each of the next 3 sizes, if that makes sense. What I'm going to do is go ahead and take some twine and I'm just going to double string it through my beads, putting these beads in order with small, medium, large, largest, and then large, medium, small. And once I get them all on there, I'm going to go ahead and tie off the top and just make a little loop. Then I'm going to take some white paint and go ahead and dry brush all over these beads. Now I found some wooden cutouts, and then Walmart had some great little minis ornaments last year that I had picked up. And once these beads were put together and dry brushed, all I had to do was just hot glue 1 little piece to the bottom of them, and that's it. You can make a huge variety. You could definitely paint these with some red if you'd like to, or do a pattern red and white and make some more whimsical themed ones, but such a fun and easy ornament to make. I wanted to make a quick and easy garland for this next DIY. I started with a piece of white cardstock and then taking some of the Dollar Tree craft paper, I just used a glue stick and attached that to the white cardstock to make the craft paper a little sturdier. From there, I measured 2.5 inches wide strips, and then I cut them on my paper cutter. I then cut these so that I ended up with some small little rectangles, and then I freehanded just cutting some roofs. So now I've made little gingerbread houses, and of course now they need to be decorated. So taking a paint pen, I just went in and drew my little designs on the houses, and from there I was ready to go ahead and make some tassels. To make my tassels, I am using some red and white baker's twine from Michaels, and I am simply taking a bunch of it and wrapping it around my hand, then taking a small piece of twine, I'll tie off the top, and then cut the bottom and make the little poof and attach another little piece of twine with some hot glue around the poof. Then I'm just going to take a needle and go ahead and thread up my tassels onto a piece of baker's twine. And then to get my little gingerbread houses attached, I'm just going to use some of the mini clothespins from Dollar Tree, clip them on there, and then this garland is ready to be hung up. This DIY was one that I had so much fun making last year. I started with one of the metal buckets from Dollar Tree and I just ripped off all the twine on the top, and then taking some of this red and white rope from Dollar Tree, I just hot glued it on the top portion and got the bucket all good to go. From there, I grabbed one of the wooden gingerbread houses and I painted the house brown. I painted all the snow portions white and the windows yellow. This is where the fun came in on this project. So in all reality, I probably did not need to paint the white portions white, but when I painted them white, I hadn't decided yet that I was going to be using my glue sticks. So I pulled all of my Surebonder colored glue sticks, and if you didn't know, they make tons of color of glue. Red, green, yellow, orange, black, purple, teal, blue, just all the colors. They also have glitter glue sticks. So for the snow, I went in with some white. The green I used on the trees and the wreath. For the Christmas lights, I used their glitter glue. Now, I do get questions often when I do use these colored glue sticks, like how do you not waste it? And these are my suggestions, my tips. Now, I'm going to be totally honest up front here. There are times when I am working on projects and if I'm having to switch colors a lot, I will just squirt out the extra into a big blob, but I do hold on to those blobs. And the reason is as I have a glue pot. I have Surebonder's glue pot. If you're not familiar what a glue pot is, it's kind of like a Scentsy warmer, but you can drop glue melts inside of it, and it is awesome to use it for florals because all you have to do is just stick the stem in the glue pot and then just stick it in there versus holding the floral with one hand, squirting with the gun with the other, then taking your other hand. It's brilliant. So I will link the one I have down below if you're interested. Worth the investment if you ask me. So I will just, squirt it into a blob. But other options is you could squirt them into silicone molds, and then depending on what the mold is, perhaps use that as a decor piece or even turn them into push pins or thumbtacks. Also, I do cut my glue sticks in half, my colored ones that is. That also saves on waste. So those are just my suggestions. I would definitely say look into a glue pot if you find yourself using different colors of glue quite frequently. It's totally worth it. Then I just added some peppermints to this, and I just kept working on making it look pretty. To assemble all of the parts of my sign together, I'm using one of these large paint sticks from Home Depot. I just painted it with some brown wax. And then I had this arrow left over from a previous project. I had painted it white but didn't use it, so I'll be using it for this, and I'm just adding Dollar Tree stickers that say Gingerbread Market to the arrow. I took some white glue and I sprinkled on some Epsom salt to kind of give this arrow a snowy / icing sugary type feel. And then I was ready to go ahead and assemble it, so I just hot glued the arrow and the house to the paint stick. I made some little peppermints using red and white glue, and I attached those to my arrow. And then I used some rocks to go ahead and weight this down a little bit because it was a little top heavy with that gingerbread house on the top and I didn't want it to fall over. So I put those in there along with some foam and some styrofoam, and then I just kind of sprinkled some hot glue on top of the styrofoam with a little bit of Epsom salt. And then this little sign was all finished, ready to go and be displayed. give this Dollar Tree sled a makeover and make it look a little more realistic. First thing I did was take the whole thing apart. Then taking a Sharpie marker, I drew some lines on the front of the sled, and using my X-Acto knife and it's actually a clay tool, but I use it as a hot glue gun tool, I made slits into it to kind of give this a more slatted wood feel, make it actually look a little more like pieces of wood. And I whittled out all the little pieces of, cardboard or whatever the heck this is made out of, and got the little slits in it. Then taking some brown wax, I just ran that through all of my little cuts inside of the sled, and then I painted the sled white and distressed it a little bit with some brown wax. Using some hazelnut paint from Waverly, I painted the bottom two pieces of the sled, and then taking some Jenga blocks, you're going to need 12 total. I glued 3 blocks together and made 4 sets of those, and then I also painted those with the hazelnut colored paint. It's time to pull this sled together, so I started by gluing down my little tower block pieces to the bottom of the sled. Then taking the top, I went ahead and hot glued that down, as well as the cross piece, just using regular old hot glue. Then I grabbed some of the Dollar Tree green garland and I shaped it into a circle and made a wreath, and hot glued a red and black bow that also came from Dollar Tree. To enhance it, I also added some of the red Dollar Tree berries. You could add some fairy lights to this if you wanted to make it have that little extra pizzazz. And then to finish off the very top of it, I just hot glued down some of these half wooden beads. I got them on Amazon and tied my twine on there. And this sled was ready to hit the slopes, but not really, because please don't try that. It's not actually for snow, it's just decor. Let's make a quick and easy sign. So starting with 6 of the tower blocks from Dollar Tree, you're also going to need to grab 2 more. I'm going to turn these into H's. So I'm just going to use my miter shears to cut one of the tower blocks in half, and that will be the cross piece on my H. I'll glue these together and then paint each one of these white. So now I have 3 white H's. I've got this chalkboard sign that came from Dollar Tree, and to make my O's, I'm just going to use some Dollar Tree bells, but I wanted to do something a little different to them, so I took some of the red and white baker's twine and went ahead and just wrapped the very top portion of the bell just to give it a little more Christmassy type vibe. And then I tied a little red and white bow with the baker's twine, and then just hot glued this all down, and that's it. I mean, this sign could probably take you maybe 10 minutes to make. It's a super quick, easy piece, and it definitely would look cute next to a little Santa figurine. This DIY is a super fast DIY that you could do, and a great little piece that you could do just to kind of amp up a gift. So all I did here was just create a little decal on Cricut. Again, you could use Dollar Tree stickers. You're going to want to grab one of the tall Dollar Tree candles, and I just added this to it. Now, if you wanted to, those white ones, they don't smell like anything. Like, I mean, it's like, hey, here, have a candle, but it smells like nothing. So if you want to use it as decor, which is what I use this one for, then it's no big deal. But if you actually wanted to gift this to somebody, you could melt the wax down, add some oils, some peppermint essential oils to scent the candle back up, and then pour it back in there. And then if you give it as a gift, at least the gift would kind of smell like peppermint, because it says candy cane on it. So that's an option if you want to do that, or again, just use that as a decor piece, and who cares what it smells like. This DIY, I'm using a small picture from Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut off the back and go ahead and pop that out. Then I have an Oh Christmas Tree printable that I'm going to attach to the back, and then hot glue the back into my sign. And then taking some of the mini Dollar Tree Christmas trees, I'm just going to hot glue those directly into my little picture. And here I have a little shadow box. This would be perfect for 3-tiered trays or a bookshelf or even a coffee table. This DIY, super easy to do and great if you need to quickly do a last minute gift. I grabbed a charger from Dollar Tree and I added this vinyl decal to it saying, hoping Rudolph eats the naughty list. You could put cookies on this and then gift it to someone. I'm going to be displaying this, so I went ahead and just made a small little colorful garland using red felt balls and some wooden beads and just draped it at the top. But if you did gift this to somebody, you could go ahead and make that little garland and use that kind of as like a little tie to tie off your cookies when you wrap it up. And so definitely a great little gift that you could give to somebody, but it also turns out to be a decor piece. I grabbed 3 wood rounds from Arteza and started by drilling a hole in each of these wood rounds. Once that was done, I grabbed one of the long dowel rods from Dollar Tree and I used some wood hot glue to secure the dowel rod into the center of the wood round. Taking one of the felt trees from Dollar Tree, I used that as a template for one of my trees. I pinned it down to this fabric that I got from Hobby Lobby, and then I trimmed around the tree, leaving about 1/4 inch of fabric all the way around. Using some fabric hot glue, I went ahead and glued up both sides of the tree, and then I took some stuffing from an old pillow and stuffed my tree. I put some hot glue on the dowel rod and then slid my tree over the dowel rod, and then I went ahead and sealed up the bottom with some more of the fabric hot glue. Now there is a little hole on the base of this because it is a wood round ornament, so if you wanted to cover that hole up, I thought that maybe you could grab some of these presents from Dollar Tree, maybe give them a little makeover by wrapping it with some of the brown craft paper and tying it off with twine, and you could certainly glue that under the tree. I end up at the end, which you'll see in a minute, I added some strings of beads to this to finish off this tree. For the next 2 trees, both of these pieces of fabric did come from Hobby Lobby. I just took my scissors, I folded this in half, and I just made some, I don't know, scallops and made it kind of a loopy-doopy, I don't know, bumpy looking tree. And then for the cream colored fabric, I went ahead and I cut that into a triangle. For both of these trees, I just repeated the process. I used the fabric hot glue, glued down the sides, stuffed it, slid it down on top of the dowel rod, and then closed up the bottom. For the red checkered one, I added a wooden star, and on my cream colored tree, I added some buttons, and then I also added a twine bow at the base where the fabric meets the dowel rod, and then I've got myself a nice custom set of fabric trees. For this DIY, I wanted to make a cute sign, so I grabbed some of the wooden stockings from Dollar Tree. The Happy Place sign came from the Target Dollar Spot, and then I had some different fabrics. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to use, as well as one of these white soft cloths from Dollar Tree. First thing I did was go ahead and paint my sign with some white paint. Once that was painted, I took some stickers from Dollar Tree, and these were kind of 3D. You could also use wooden letters if you wanted to, depending on what size of the sign that you had to work with. And just as a quick little hack, I took the plastic cover off of the letters and set that down on top of my sign, and then I stuck my stickers down on it to make sure that they would fit on the sign. You could also do this with wax paper. You know, it's a good way to make sure that you can make sure that all your stickers will definitely fit. Then once I realized, okay, I'm good to go, I went ahead and painted these with some red paint. While the letters were drying, I was ready to work on my stockings, so I took the fabric and I just traced around the stocking, and I added some batting to the stocking, and then I covered the stocking with that fabric just using some hot glue. To finish off the stockings, I took some of that white microfiber cloth from Dollar Tree, and I used that as the top portion, kind of using the hem. There was a hemmed edge of it, and I used that to touch the, I guess, the stocking portion, and then I just tucked it all around and hot glued it on there. And then I just hot glued all of my stockings down to my sign, and on the middle stocking I used a little bit of greenery with berries just to kind of give it an extra pop, and then there you go, you've got yourself a little sign that you could hang up anywhere. I grabbed these 2x4s out of my scrap wood pile, and I cut them down on my miter saw and went ahead and cut roofs on each of these. I'm making some gingerbread houses. To paint them, I used some of the Waverly chalk paint in the color Hazelnut. Then using my sketchbook, I just sketched out kind of the design I wanted to make on each of the houses. And then I grabbed one of the Surebonder colored glue sticks in the color white, and I just went ahead and started decorating these little houses. I just absolutely love how it turned out. It looks like I used real icing, gives it a whole 3D effect, and I just think it's really, really cute. This next DIY is a three-parter. So the first part of it is I grabbed two of these signs from Dollar Tree, and all I'm doing is just painting the center with some white paint, and then I just cut out on my Cricut one that's gonna say ho ho ho, and the other one's gonna say Merry Christmas in the color red. Again, use stickers if you need to. You can hand letter this or even use stamps. Once these two were finished, I put them aside and I was ready to work on my next project, was converting this little house to a little barn for Santa Claus. So I started first by painting the outside of this house red and then painting the roof black. Once the house was a barn, I just took my paint pen and I drew some windows using that on the side of my little barn. And then I found a cute vintage looking printable on Pinterest, and I just printed that out and attached that to the inside of my house. Then grabbing some of these multicolored fairy lights, I got a whole pack of these on Amazon. I think it was like a 10 pack. I went ahead and attached these fairy lights to the roof. And then to finish off the roof, I took one of the galvanized frame things from Dollar Tree, and I went ahead and cut that apart so that I could have a galvanized tin roof on top of my barn. I then needed to work on some barn doors. So to do that, I used 3 large popsicle sticks, and then I used some of the small popsicle sticks to go ahead and get those held together. And then I just went ahead and painted it with some brown wax. And then I hot glued these to each of the sides of the barn to make it look like the doors were swung open and you could see Santa and his reindeer. Candy canes, candy canes, candy canes. These by far are my most favorite thing to make. I have been making them for years. Every year I add a couple more to my collection. I just love how these look. So for this, you're just going to want to pick out whatever fabrics you're going for. I've picked fabrics that are a little more, I guess, on the vintage type feel, but you could do bright colors. And I'm cutting these into strips about 1 inch wide. Once you get your strips all cut, you're going to start wrapping these plastic candy canes from Dollar Tree. And I just go and I wrap. Now you could fray the edges of the fabric. You could just wrap it solid. You could definitely pad these candy canes first if you wanted to, if you didn't want to make skinny. So this one that I'm making now is just going to be a very super skinny one, but some of the ones that I've made that you'll see in just a second have rope and it kind of bulks them up a little bit. So it just depends on how bulky you want it to be, but you just go and you wrap, hot glue it, and then start another piece of fabric, and then you can embellish these with whatever you'd like. You could add greenery to them, you could add a sign to them, but I'm telling you, these are so fun to make. They make great little gifts if you gave a little bundle of 3. You can also do this technique on the small little candy canes that Dollar Tree has and make them for your tree. Lots of options, lots of fabric choices, and so fun to make. Wooden presents are another great DIY that you could make for a gift or even just for your own home. So here I had in my scrap pile some 2x10s, and I went ahead and sanded them down. I took all the sharp edges off, and then I rounded the corners, and I went in with some ivory colored paint by Waverly, and I painted it mostly for full coverage, but I wasn't stressing over it being completely filled. I did want it to have that rustic vibe. And then taking some of these metal words from Dollar Tree, I wanted to make them look a little more galvanized, so I layered on a couple different colors of paint. I used the steel gray from Waverly, and then I also used silver lining as well as some white, and I just went in and dabbed until I liked the way they looked. From there, I also sealed these off with a little bit of Mod Podge just to make sure that the paint wouldn't scrape off. Then taking some buffalo check ribbon, I went ahead and tied it around each of the presents. I tied it in a knot, and then I went ahead and cut the ends, and then I cut another piece. Instead of tying bows, this is kind of the option I went with. And then I just filled it in with some greenery, a mix of stuff that I had from Hobby Lobby as well as from Dollar Tree. And for the metal words, I did attach those by using some super glue. I wouldn't recommend using hot glue because that might make them pop off kind of easily if they happen to get knocked. So if you know for sure this is a permanent DIY for you, go ahead and use that super glue to secure them down. And then the measurements on each of these boards were the small present is 10 inches long, 12 inches long, and 14 inches long. For this DIY, I started with some yarn from Dollar Tree and I made 9 tassels. Once my tassels were completed, I had a sign that came from Hobby Lobby and I just painted it white. It was another clearance find. And I grabbed 3 sticks from my front yard. I just trimmed them down and I just hot glued the sticks down to make a trunk, and then I started gluing my tassels down. So the bottom row of tassels has 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1. And this is a very boho looking Christmas tree. You could go in and add little beads to it if you wanted to, or you could do this in green if you wanted to make it a little more festive and colorful. But a super easy sign to make. It did not take any time at all, and it's definitely inexpensive. I'm making a light up sign for this next DIY. I grabbed one of the large candy canes from Dollar Tree and using my heat knife, I cut off about 6 inches off of the bottom. From there, I had a small sign that I picked up on clearance from Hobby Lobby and I just painted over the design on it with some white paint. I then took a printable that I created and I trimmed it down. This is going to lay on top of my sign, but before I attached that, I drilled a small hole in the corner so that I could feed my fairy lights through the sign and attach the battery pack to the back and then the fairy lights to the front. I'm just using some regular old Scotch tape to tape down the fairy lights, and then to get my sign attached, my printable, I just used some glue dots and attached it directly to the sign. And then I did drill a hole in the bottom of the sign so that I could feed my candy cane through the bottom of the sign. To finish this sign off, I stuck it in a styrofoam disc from Dollar Tree, and then I did attach some rocks. You definitely need to weight down the bottom of this because it is super top heavy, so definitely weight it down. You could paint the rocks. I just left them natural because it's hidden in a wagon, but like I said, weight it down with something that's heavy. I decided to make a candy cane inspired sled, so I've grabbed a piece of foam board from Dollar Tree and I'm using one of their wreath forms to draw the curve on the top. Once I got that done, I went ahead and cut this out, and then I drew lines to make the slats for the sled and went ahead and painted over the lines with some black paint. After going over the black lines with a little bit of white paint, I took 8 tower blocks from Dollar Tree and I glued 2 of them together, and then I glued those directly to the candy canes. From there, I took some large popsicle sticks from Walmart and I went ahead and connected the Jenga blocks by gluing a popsicle stick across the top of the sled as well as along the bottom, and then I also glued 1 popsicle stick at the very front of the sled. To finish off the sled, I attached some candy cane ribbon that came from Hobby Lobby, as well as added a red and white baker's twine rope to the front of it, and I also added some bells. I'm making over the plastic ornaments from Dollar Tree in this DIY by making some ruffled ornaments. So what I've got here is just some fabric from Hobby Lobby. You could use fabric or you could use ribbon, and I'm cutting the strips to about 2 inches wide. Once I get this strip all cut, you can fray the ends if you'd like, or just leave it plain. For this one, I went ahead and frayed the ends, and then I started by gluing at the top of the ornament, and then I folded it back, glued it, went to the next section, glued that down, folded it back, and created a ruffle, and just continued to wrap all the way around the ornament. When I got to the bottom, I took the extra fabric and I just glued it up tight against the ornament, and then this one was finished. If you don't want your ornament to be so rusticy looking, then there's a little bit of a cleaner look you can do here. Take your fabric strip, go ahead and fold it and press it, and then just go through the same process of making the ruffles and wrapping around the ornament all the way till you get to the bottom, and then just secure the bottom with some hot glue and the fabric. I grabbed this big pack of green felt from Amazon to make some mini felt trees. The first thing I did was find a pattern that I could use. I just found it online, and I went ahead and cut my 3 different sections apart. Then with one of the colors, I went ahead and followed the pattern, and I went ahead and made a scallop edge on each of the pieces of the felt. And then to give it a little bit more of a custom and just, I don't know, homey look, I took some white thread and I went ahead and made little stitches on each piece of the felt. From there, it was just a matter of hot gluing this on onto some mini cones that I got from Hobby Lobby. You can do all kinds of different styles. You could do different stitching, you could do different colors. You don't necessarily have to do green trees if you want to. So I left one scalloped, I did one that was plain, and I kind of changed up the stitching, and then did one without any type of stitching. Just kind of played around with it, and really happy with how they turned out. You could definitely make a huge little forest of felt trees very easily. You may remember this tree from one of my hardware series videos. Those are the videos that I do where I go to the hardware store and pick a supply and then make tons of things. Well, this was wood shims. So all you need to make this tree is just a styrofoam tree from Dollar Tree. Take those wood shims and cut them down to whatever size you want, and then hot glue them all around until you get the shape that you like. And I'm telling you, this is an easy tree to make, super inexpensive. You can make really big ones, really small. You could dry brush it with white paint. You could brown, green, lots and lots of options for you to make this wood shim tree. And speaking of hardware series, when I did the wood biscuit video from the hardware store, this tree came to life. Basically the exact same process. I had a small styrofoam cone. This one came from Hobby Lobby. I took those wood biscuits and I just glued them all around until I liked how the tree looked. I added a Dollar Tree dowel rod to it and stuck it in a little Dollar Tree pot. And then I dry brushed it with some white paint. Again, you could make this any size. You could make a small, large, but both of these trees cost almost next to nothing to make, and I just think they look really elegant. I wanted to transform this gnome sign from Dollar Tree into a sheet music Christmas sign. So the first thing I did was pop off the gnome and then go ahead and get rid of the glitter. My method for doing that is just to spray Goo Gone on it, and then I just scrape it off. It comes right off. I wipe it and it's good to go. Once the glitter was off, I took my sheet music and I traced around my sign, and then I attached the music to the sign using some of my Gorilla Glue adhesive spray. Now you're going to notice the bottom isn't completely covered by the sheet music, and that's totally okay. You'll see why in just a second. From there, I just took a pencil and I sketched out the town of Bethlehem the best I could, and then using my Arteza black marker, I went in and traced the outline of it, and then I just colored in the whole thing with black marker. You certainly could use paint if you choose to do that, or even a Sharpie marker. And then the last step here was to go ahead and take some greenery and some berries, and I ended up hot gluing those to the end. I did put a hanger on this, but I did not end up hanging this up. I just ended up putting it in a stand and sitting it next to my nativity scene. I wanted to make some Christmas music ornaments. So for this, I just have 3 different Christmas songs printed out. I will have this printable linked down below for you guys, so definitely just check the description box for all the stuff that you see in today's video. I traced around the wood round and then trimmed it just a little bit to make sure I got it nice and sized perfectly. Then I added a piece of twine. I attached this with some Gorilla Glue spray and just put the twine through the hole. And then along the outside, I wrapped some of this Dollar Tree stem or stemmery. I don't know what it is. It's not a floral, but it's not really greenery, so it's just their frosted wooden branch thing. And I just hot glue that around the edge. I didn't seal these in, but you certainly could put a coat of Mod Podge over the sheet of music if you feel like you do need to seal it. And that's it. I just tried to keep them nice and simple, but I think they will look really nice to my tree next to the piano. Here I'm going to make an easy wooden snowflake. So I start with 8 clothespins and I just took them all apart. Then taking 2 of the pieces of clothespin, I just hot glued them together back to back. I made a T shape with 4 of the clothespin little glued combos and just anchored those in the center with some hot glue. Then taking the 4 other pieces, I hot glued those into the center. And to finish off this snowflake, I took 1 wooden snowflake that came from Dollar Tree and hot glued that right in the center of my snowflake. And then I took a smaller Hobby Lobby snowflake and hot glued that on top. Added something to tie it with, or I'm sorry, to hang it with, and then that's it. You've got yourself a nice little wooden snowflake. These are a great filler piece if maybe you start a new tree and you just don't want to invest in having tons and tons of ornaments on there, you can make lots of these snowflakes. You could paint them white, blue, green, red, whatever colors you want, and add them to your tree. Here is another quick garland idea for you. I started with some of this green yarn that I got from Hobby Lobby. It is by the brand Yarn Bee, and I made several green tassels. Then taking a piece of twine and some of the Dollar Tree berries, I went ahead and thread the needle through the berries and put them in groups of 3. In between each group of 3 of berries, I attached a green tassel, and you guys, that's it. This is just such a quick and easy little garland if you just need something a little extra somewhere. Again, this one will take you no time at all to complete. And here is how I decorated my hutch last year. It's always peppermint bake theme, but it does change year to year with me adding DIYs, adding different decor. I haven't decorated it quite yet for this year, but man, am I super excited, and I'll make sure to show you when I do. I hope that this video will bring you tons of inspiration as you start your Christmas DIYs. Let me know down below which one of these projects was your favorite. Also, let me know this: whenever you start to decorate for Christmas, what is the first thing you do? Is it a wreath on the door? Is it a Christmas tree? Is it garland on your stairs? I would love to know what your first step is in the decorating process. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really, really appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Bye!